So it's 5 o'clock, right? I can get started now. Hello, and a very warm welcome to our fellow veterinary community. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you have a cup of tea ready. You're sitting down maybe for the first time today, ready to relax and listen to us. Thank you for joining us for Vetstoria's webinar, Is Positive Workplace Culture Still Possible in Veterinary Practices? This topic is one we're really passionate about, and I can imagine is a subject that has affected all of us in one way or another in our veterinary journeys. Our aim today is to help you as individuals, as teams, and as companies. So without further ado, let me begin with a few introductions. So my name is Victoria Deemer-Smith. I'm at RVN in the UK, and I'm also a mental health first aider. I have been in the industry for 14 years and more recently joined Vetstoria, where I am the client advocacy manager. We also have Leah Pascal on the call today. Can you introduce yourself, Leah?
Sure, I'm Leah Pascal, and like you, Vicky, been in the industry for 14 years. I'm a registered veterinary nurse and currently a district manager for an out-of-hours emergency and critical care company here in the UK.
Wonderful. And we also have Kate Powell joining us today. Can you introduce yourself, Kate?
Absolutely. So I am Kate Powell. I have been with Vetstoria for about 6 weeks now as a client success representative. Before that, I was in clinic for about 12 years in and around the Austin, Texas area. Started as a receptionist and worked my way up to assistant hospital manager for both private and corporate practices.
Wonderful. Well, both of you forgot to mention how wonderfully talented you are, but I forgive you for that. So let's open this discussion up. The first thing we are going to look at is a survey that Vetstoria conducted, and we asked 288 of our clients what impacts veterinary workplace culture the most. So you can see here from the results that 37.5% mentioned that stressed colleagues has an impact on work culture, followed closely by pet owner behaviour, safety, and being short-staffed. So looking at this, we know our colleagues are stressed in clinics. Kate, do you have any input on this? What's your opinion on these numbers?
I'd say I agree with these numbers. Pre-COVID, I think being short-staffed and pet owner behavior maybe had a little bit more so to do with some of our stress in the veterinary industry. But post-COVID, obviously, has heightened quite a bit some of these. So being short-staffed, new safety measures, and how that affects us as well as our pet owners has greatly contributed to the stress of our colleagues.
Yep, and so I think one task for us to do is to find and understand why our colleagues are stressed. So what are the causes? So here you can see a lovely visual aid of some of the contributing factors that can create a negative workplace culture. So looking at this at a quick glance, we can identify mental health, poor management or leadership, maybe a lack of work-life balance, pet owner abuse, unfortunately, and of course, more recently, COVID-19. So I would just like to mention how maybe a lack of mental health awareness can create a negative workplace culture. So when I say mental health, I don't mean mental illness. I mean mental health in the same way that I would say physical health. We should be aware of it. We should know what's good for us, what's not so good for us. And we should be able to support individuals in the workplace when needed. Without a proper infrastructure in our workplace, we're not able to support the individuals and their mental health. And when they are potentially suffering, this can lead to them feeling misunderstood, unsupported, and creates demoralization as well. You can also see the visual aid of potentially poor management and leadership skills. So when we have poor management, this could be identified as a lack of good communication skills. Maybe employees don't feel that they can talk to their managers in a safe space and give feedback or an opinion. Maybe we're micromanaged and under constant scrutiny. Maybe there's bad habits where team leaders are late for work, and what message does that give to their employees? Do they really inspire the core values of the business, or are these not driven at all? We can also see a lack of work-life balance and heavy workloads. And Leah, I wanted to get your input on this, whether you can elaborate.
Yeah, I think work-life balance is something that we, as veterinary professionals, are not perhaps very good at. First and foremost, we always put our patients first. We always put our clients first. We won't take a break. We'll work shifts, hours on end, without even thinking about ourselves. But that does have an impact on the clinic culture. People get tired, they get stressed, they get frustrated, they get upset perhaps if management aren't doing the same thing. They can't understand why they're not, or why they're not recognising it. And that has an impact on us individually, on our families, outside of work. And especially, I think at the minute, we don't have that release we would have had pre-COVID. We don't have a chance to bond with our teams. We can't go out. We're not going out with our families. So I think more than ever, it's a time to actually be more conscious and take that time for ourselves, take that half an hour break, look after each other. Don't feel like everyone's judging you if you do, or if you have to leave on time, because they're probably not, to be fair.
Yes, I think we can all agree, all of us on this call have felt guilty if we want to leave work on time. And even if we was to leave work on time, we would probably stress and double check everything we've done and contact the clinic and our colleagues anyway regarding a patient. And so it's hard to switch off, isn't it? And I think if this happens every shift, as opposed to once in a blue moon, we can understand how this can create a negative workplace culture. And Kate, I would like to see what you think, of course, being in the workplace recently, the impacts of COVID-19 and also, pet owner abuse, unfortunately.
Absolutely, yeah. So, as Leah mentioned, we all as veterinary professionals, I think, are all very caring people. We're all very empathetic, and the effects and the stress that COVID-19 has really just put on the entire world, I think we have felt. One thing I noticed a lot here in the U.S. is at the beginning of COVID-19, at least, a lot of focus was put on essential businesses like doctors, nurses, people who work at grocery stores and that sort of thing. And, we certainly do value those essential workers as well, but veterinary professionals are essential workers too. And we kept got up every day and went to work because we have a passion for what we do, and we still wanted to be there every day to take care of our pets and their clients. And I think we felt maybe, we weren't getting some of the recognition as being essential workers as well. And then on top of that, having to change up hours, we were, worried about our jobs, how things were going to turn out, our own personal health and safety, and having to get up and go to work every day. And then having to change up our policies regarding health and safety, and, starting curbside appointments, and, forcing clients to wait outside for appointments as opposed to coming in with their pets, which stressed them out. Things got very confusing, and just in general, as a whole human race, we're more stressed out than we used to be. And unfortunately, I think sometimes when it comes to pet owners, that has a tendency to be taken out on some veterinary professionals, because sometimes coming to the vet's stressful anyway. And then when you add in on top of it all the extra stresses, changes in policies that they may not be happy with, sometimes it just all comes to a tipping point. And then receptionists, technicians, even sometimes the doctors then have to deal with it. They're the ones who have to be the ones to kind of take all that in, much more so than we did before, I think.
Yes, no, I agree wholeheartedly. And, we've given a few examples of what the cause could be. I'm sure there is more that the listeners could identify with as well. And it's important that when we look at positive workplace culture, that we find the causes that are negative. We need to find the cause, and then we can start to make change. So let's just have a look now at the business cost and human cost of a negative workplace culture. So you can see here that the New York Business Wire reported that 1 in 5 Americans have left a job in the past 5 years due to bad company culture. And this turnover costs $223 billion, which I think we can all agree is an astronomical amount. So not only is turnover costing businesses, But what else can impact a business? Well, they may suffer with a poor reputation because of the turnover. There's also a ripple effect within the clinic. You know, team members have lost a member of staff. They need to train up new members and morale may be low. Services that once were accessible for pet owners may no longer be. And of course, they may risk closure altogether. Now, I think it's a little bit depressing what I'm about to tell you, but I think we spend, I think it's 90,000 hours at work in our lifetime. So we really want to try and make this as positive as we can be and address anything that's causing a negative workplace culture. So looking at the human cost, and I'm of the opinion that this, of course, is more important than anything else. So recently, the British Veterinary Association conducted a survey, and we found that 75% of vets are concerned about burnout and stress due to COVID-19. So this is an industry that's not necessarily worrying about job losses or job security. They're actually worried about that there's too much work and they are exhausted. Leah, can I get your thoughts on this? Do you agree with that figure?
Yeah, I think burnout was always it's always been a concern. It's always been a hot topic, hasn't it, amongst us really? And we've never really had an answer. But I think COVID has just highlighted that even more. This is really sad, and I think we all unite. We all very much unite. And I think that's something that we've seen throughout COVID. Everyone's really cracked on, and we've all really joined forces together. Different companies, corporates, clinics, out of hours providers. But what happens when we get over it? I wouldn't be surprised if actually we do lose a lot of people from our profession because they're so tired, they're so burnt out, and at the minute they keep going because they've got that care, they want to help the patients and the clients. Yeah. There's going to come a point when we hopefully get past this pandemic, and then sadly enough, I think we're going to lose quite a lot of vets, nurses, clinical support staff because it's all too much.
So really, we need to act now, right, to try and improve this for everyone involved and see the wonderful positives that are in our industry.
100%. And that's something we focus a lot on negatives, don't we? Yes.
Well.
It's very easy to focus on negatives, but we don't really focus on the positives. And it is hard because certainly from my point of view and what I hear from our teams is the resources. We're lacking resources, but we can't find these resources. We can't just magic them up. And I would love to do that more than ever. Yeah. So it is a vicious cycle. So how else can we help, support, provide and be there for them?
We need to find ways, right? Other ways potentially as well. And you'll notice as well, the American Veterinary Medical Association also did a survey, and we can see here that only 1/3 of veterinarians will recommend the profession, and 60% of veterinary practices struggle with efficiency. Kate, what do you think about these figures?
I'd say that seems, in my experience, pretty spot on. Personally, I have a family member that's a veterinarian. She's been a veterinarian for somewhere between 13 to 15 years, and she's got a couple kids of her own. And she and I even have had discussions in the veterinary world that if her kids come up in the future and decide they want to be a vet like mommy, of course, she'll support them. But she feels like she may not want to recommend it just because it is tough. It's hard. It takes, for veterinarians, it takes a lot of time away from their families.
Yes.
And a lot of that is because of our, struggle with efficiency within the workplace. If we could maybe find ways to be more efficient and support each other a little bit more, then it would be easier for her to want to recommend that to future generations who want to be veterinarians, even with as passionate as she is in her love for her job.
Yeah, and it's weird that you say this because my daughter, who's 6, she has a doctor's kit out and she says, "Mummy, I want to be a vet. I want to be like you and nurse patients." And while I'm happy she doesn't go down the husband's career path, that makes me a little bit, happy. And the fact that she has this empathy and love for animals is beautiful. But there is part of my heart that sinks a little bit because I know the stress and I know the responsibility that we all have on our shoulders. And I hope and I pray really that we can improve this for the future generations as well as ourselves, so that they can enter the profession feeling positive.
Mm-hmm.
So now, Kate, I would like to learn a bit more about you, please.
Mm-hmm.
So as you've recently been in a clinic, I would just like to find out a bit more. What was your experience before and during COVID?
Sure. So yeah, before COVID, you know, I even during COVID, really, I would say I love my job. You know, I still have lots of love and respect for everyone in the veterinary community. There's, you know, of course, lots of things that even not being essentially, you know, working in a clinic anymore, I do miss. Before COVID, I would say, you know, on any given day, 95% of my day was fabulous. You know, I got to interact with our clients whom I really love and adore. Some of them almost became like family members to me. You know, I had a child about 5 years ago, and even up to a few months ago, I'd still have clients coming in and asking how my son was, and their pets kind of, you know, I felt like were my pets, and I think that's how most people in the veterinary industry feel, and we really connect with these people and their pets. I think, you know, obviously some of the more grueling aspects of the veterinary industry, sometimes long hours, you know, working holidays. It's a very physically demanding job as well as mentally demanding job. Over as time grew on and I got a little older and, you know, had a kid myself, it started to kind of wane on me a little bit. And then COVID came along, of course, and things just kind of hit the fan, as you'd say. You know, we got even more, I would say we got even more busy, but we had less staff to deal with it. We got more busy and we had more issues with clients, but we had less mental capacity and physical capacity to deal with it. And it finally just kind of came to a point where I felt like if there was going to be any time for me to really make that leap and jump out of the veterinary industry, that, you know, maybe this was it. As you know, as much as I absolutely completely loved working in the veterinary industry, it just came to a point where I just kind of felt like I couldn't do it anymore, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And I can totally relate to what you're saying. And when you see yourself in clinic, members of your team, can you describe the mental and even physical impact it's had on those individuals? Did you notice any change in their behavior, or you know, just the morale maybe being diminished? What did you notice there?
Yeah, we definitely, I think as a whole, you know, as a team could feel the team morale sinking. Individually, my colleagues, you know, I noticed just a lot more maybe kind of being quick to snap at each other sometimes, because we're just, you know, we're frustrated. You know, I think we also noticed more people, even though we were even shorter staffed, more people sometimes calling in sick or taking some time off, which I think is needed, but just more so needing to take time off just away from the clinic for themselves than they did previously, which obviously, you know, we were happy to allow the time off because it is needed, but then it's also putting strain on the people that are there, which we all know, and is one of the reasons why people, I think, don't take some of that time that they need.
Yes, no, I agree. And we can't ignore that our industry, our veterinary professionals, you know, not only do we suffer with psychological distress, maybe we make clinical mistakes because of the mental impact, you know, workplace is having on us at the moment. And suicide, unfortunately, is prevalent in our industry. And of course, along with mental health conditions, physical health, cardiovascular problems, insomnia, tiredness, we know that these are factors. I certainly have suffered myself in the workplace, both mentally and physically. And support is really needed at this time to address what's creating a negative workplace and to support our colleagues. So if there was something that the veterinary industry could do as a whole that would have kept you in the profession, what would it have been?
You know, I think for me personally, it really came down to just a personal need for maybe a little bit more flexibility and being able to build a little bit more balance into my life.
Yeah.
You know, like I mentioned before, I really just got to a point where I felt like I was giving 125% of myself at work, which I know we all do naturally, you know.
Yeah.
But it just came to a point where I felt like I had absolutely nothing left to give to myself when I got home with my family. And just, I know it's something that's very hard to do. And like, where do you find that time to give your employees that break, you know?
Yeah.
But that's what I really needed. I needed a little bit more flexibility. And then for me also, I was looking for a little bit more growth opportunities as well.
Yeah.
You know, I had kind of moved up the chains, you could say, you know, in some more leadership type roles. But there was, you know, someone like me, I knew I was not going to become a veterinarian. So there was just a little bit of a limit in where I could see myself going. So that was part of it as well. So.
Yep. So no, I hear you. And looking at it as a whole, both personally and professionally, was that environment sustainable?
You know, it got to a point, I think, within the last 6 months to a year, which happens to coincide with the height of coronavirus, of course, that I did not feel like it was sustainable, especially within my last few months in clinic were really tough. You know, and I know that it's been very tough for everyone. I'm certainly not alone in that. And it just came to a point where when some other opportunities started coming up, where in the past I probably wouldn't have even really looked at those opportunities. I felt like my lifestyle was not sustainable anymore the way that it was. And so I started looking at other opportunities where I wouldn't have before.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Kate, for sharing your experience, being so open with us. And this actually leads us into our next poll that we did here. And again, we asked 288 of our veterinary professionals whether they feel valued and if they've ever received support when facing pet owner abuse. Now, you may notice that Leah, Kate and I are smiling a little bit because we were really surprised at these figures. And it sounds really awful that we were surprised that actually this had a positive outcome. We actually questioned whether they were wrong initially, especially looking at other data and other surveys that other organizations have done. So it was surprising. Maybe, this last year has instilled positive workplace culture. Maybe people are working closer together than ever before. Leah, what is your opinion on these results here?
Shocked. Totally initially
we were shocked, wasn't we?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's wonderful. If anything, this shows that there is some hope. Over half in both of these feel valued and feel supported. That's wonderful. And it could be because everyone's just really gelled together. They've really bonded and united even more than ever because they've had to. They haven't had a choice to. But you know, I also wonder if these were Vetstoria clinics that were asked, is it possibly because these are perhaps more innovative? They listen to their staff, they've got cleaner, more efficient workflows, so that there's less abuse from clients.
Yes, potentially
through technology, possibly. I don't know. But yeah, I think if anything, this is really positive and shows that it can be done. We can do it. I'd love to know who these clinics are and what they've done.
Yes,
for their staff to come out with this. Because we focus on the negative, but actually what did they do that's so positive for these guys to feel this way?
And it shows that it can be achieved. It shows that this can happen for your workplace, indeed. Yeah. So Leah, being the district manager of a leading emergency service in the UK, I'd like to know a little bit more about you, really. So previously you have been in a clinical role, working in different environments. What was your experience with workplace culture as a veterinary nurse?
So well, you know me very well. We've known each other a long time, and you know that I have been around a little bit. And quite a few practices, and it very varied. You know, the practices that I've been to initially when I was training and I was a nurse. Although I loved training to be a nurse, as a group of nurses, we felt very undervalued and unsupported, and we really struggled. But yet, looking back, we were the really happy, fun ones. that kind of kept everything upbeat, and the culture was positive, I think, because of that impact that we had. But then on the flip side, you know, I've gone to ECC and felt really valued, felt like a professional, felt like, you know, I'm doing everything that I've trained to do, which is a wonderful feeling.
Yes.
But then within that environment, it takes one individual to completely cripple that team, bring in a negative culture, and that has another impact. And I've been there. You know, my managers not listened, my leaders haven't listened, the team feels very unsupported, and then in creeps the negativity, and it can be hard to get that positivity back if you're not feeling like you're listened to, you're being heard, or that you've got the space to talk.
Yes, no, I agree. So with your position now as a manager and during a pandemic, what are the differences? What are the challenges now that you're facing?
I think for me personally, it's the role itself is a very remote role. It's remote working. It's, you know, it's emergency. And I think the hardest thing that I initially found at the beginning, especially with the first lockdown, we'll just enter in a second, but with the first, is not being there on the front line with these guys. That's not being in there with the thick of it and really struggling to help them. And again, doing exactly what I said earlier, right? Being hard on yourself, never feeling like you're doing enough and you're giving enough and helping them enough. But I do think that I really try to be available. I hope I give them the space to talk to me, to come to me, and listen and try and help them as best I can.
So what do you think has worked for you in a positive way within the workplace at the moment?
I would say that the whole teams, it's been so lovely. I'd say there's been, what I've noticed, more recognition for the clinical support team. You know, as you know, I hate it when anyone refers to themselves as, I'm just a nurse, I'm just a receptionist. To me, you're never just that person. You are part of a team and part of that patient's care and journey, no matter what your role is. And I think for us, you know, one of our clinics in particular struggled with receptionists because of shielding in the pandemic and everything else. And although it used to be a hole when the receptionist was there, it was like a really big void when they weren't there in the middle of this pandemic. And I think that recognition for them has really been noticed, I would say, by the clinical side of it, and everyone's really recognised what each other's role is and just how important each other is, which is maybe why people are feeling more valued.
Yes, no, I agree. And I can relate to this because I was that veterinary nurse that I really don't like people. I just love animals, and animals are my life. And I don't need feedback. I don't need recognition for what I do because I do it for the animal. And, you know, at 2 o'clock in the morning, when you're making them comfortable, and they give you a little tail wag and you go, yeah, this is all I need. This is the feedback I need. I know I'm doing a good job. And I think I lied to myself for a number of years about this, because actually, as time went on, and dare I say, the older I got, I thought, no, I actually do need recognition now, just a little bit of feedback, just something that says that I'm doing okay and I'm doing a good job. And I really tried telling myself I wasn't that individual, but actually I needed to hear, you know, constructive criticism and to know and to grow from it as well. So I really agree with what you're saying, Leah. So thank you for sharing that with us. So our next slide here. So why positive workplace culture? So you can see here a positive workplace culture improves teamwork, raises the morale, increases productivity and efficiency, and enhances retention of the workforce. Now, when we, you know, maybe have a problem within our clinic and we're thinking, well, how can we get positive workplace culture? What do we need to do? The first question I would actually like you to ask yourselves is why, and knowing your why. So here you can see there is a video on screen, and I'm going to play it for you all. It's the first time Leah and Kate has seen it as well, and I'll get their response in a moment. So enjoy.
This is called How Do I Know? And a lot of times when people hear the phrase, how do I know? The next thing they say is what? How do I know what? But the key really isn't to know what, the key is to know why. Because when you know your why, you have options on what your what can be. For instance, my why is to inspire people to walk in purpose. My what is stand-up comedy. My what is writing books. My what can be going out with some friends to eat. In fact, another what that has moved me towards my why is a web series that we have out now called Break Time. So every Wednesday at 3 o'clock, you should subscribe to the channel. We do a series called Break Time on YouTube. So 3 o'clock, we drop a new episode. One episode in particular, I'm about to show you a clip to. We were in Winston-Salem. So Break Time, this is how it works. I travel the country, I do stand-up comedy, probably an hour, hour and a half at an event. And in the middle of my show, I'll just sit down and start talking to the audience. And funny just happens. Or I'll meet somebody who's really interesting. So I met this one guy, and he said that he teaches music at a school. I was like, all right, you teach music, you know, can you sing? And then I'm just gonna show you the clip. Check it. So you're a musical director. Cool.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let me get a couple bars of like Amazing Grace. Can you do the first part of that? Go ahead.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
Wow. That bro could sing, you know what I'm saying? All right. Now, what you give me the version is if your uncle just got out of jail, you got shot in the back when you was a kid. I'm just saying, let me see the hood version real quick, if you know which version I'm talking about. Just see if that exists. Let me see what you got.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Right now I'm found, was blind, but now I see.
So here's the thing. The first time I asked him to sing, he knew what he was doing. The second time I asked him to sing, he knew why he was doing it. When you know your why, your what has more impact because you're walking in or towards your purpose.
I love that so much. I love that. I get so emotional when I watch this. So, I could just listen to that man all day. So, Leah, what's your first reaction watching that video?
It gave me goosebumps,
Yeah.
which is quite actually hard, as you know, with me.
No. It's goosebumps. I love it. Okay, I've watched it like 20 times and I still get goosebumps when I watch it. Did it make sense to you what he was saying?
Definitely. I think if that could have such a massive impact to get that across to staff.
Yes.
But what a difference. You know why you're doing it.
Yeah, exactly. And Kate, do you feel the same?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the things that, what brought everyone to the veterinary industry is their passion for pets and their passion for animals and their passion for helping and their passion for caring. And it's so easy throughout your day with all of these, negative things bombarding you in the media and on the TV and in your daily life and everything to forget why you're really there. Because it's, in the end, you're not just there because it's a job, because you're going to get paid on Friday. You're there because of a reason. And I think we, as a people and even as a team have to refocus that sometimes. We have to remind ourselves of that sometimes.
Yes, we do. And when I think of my journey as a veterinary nurse, I think I actually had a purpose without realizing it was my purpose. So when I was younger, I knew I wanted to be a veterinary nurse. The reason being, I had a bit of a turbulent childhood, and I feel my pets saved me. So my purpose was to save them back. And I thought, I need to save them and I need to help as many as I could. And I reminded myself of this purpose throughout my entire career. When times were tough, when there were hard days, I always reverted back to that purpose and probably didn't even know that I was really doing it. So living with a purpose feels alive and authentic. And I think when we have purpose, we have days where we feel really content and fulfilled. And a 2009 study of over 73,000 Japanese men and women actually found that those who had a strong connection to their sense of purpose tended to live longer lives than those who didn't. So extensive research shows that when you have a sense of purpose, you tend to be more resilient, lead to better health, you have less worry and greater happiness overall. And it tends to provide you with better relationships with your family, friends, and the wider community. So I encourage our listeners to look at their why holistically. Think about what your why is. What is your workplace why? And what is your why together? Because I believe that's really going to help you go forward and find the whats that are going to have an impact for you and your teams. Okay.
This is called How Do I Know? And a lot of times when people hear the
Let's
phrase,
go to the next slide. Here we go. Okay. So why does purpose have such a positive effect? So here we can see psychological health, ant and pet, and Leah thought I said ant and deck earlier, but I didn't. It was ant and pet, and it's a bit ironic, but I'll just explain what they mean. So when we have a purpose, it improves psychological health because we tend to be less vulnerable to psychological discord. Now, this is when we have that fundamental unease of experiencing whenever our attention isn't occupied by external things, and it can manifest into boredom, anxiety, and depression. When we focus our attention on external sources, it creates internal conflicts. And our purpose means that we can spend less time in that chatter of our minds, which will often trigger negative thoughts and feelings. We often feel immersed with our negative thoughts and our internal dialogue, and this creates a pathway of automatic negative thinking, ants, especially ants if you've got more than one, which I know that I do. Ants are hard to escape from and change. But with purpose, ironically, we can change this into PET, which is positive enhancing thinking. On average, the human brain thinks 70,000 times a day. So we want to have more pets than we do have ants. And Buddha once said that nothing can harm us as much as our own thoughts. When we have purpose as well, and we're aligned with this, we tend to feel less self-centered. We feel we're part of something bigger and something that's outside of ourselves. And this makes us focus less on anxiety and worry. And we have a sense of feeling of well-being. It also can enhance our self-esteem. When we're dealing with challenges, when we're moving closer to our goals, our confidence will naturally increase. We feel we've achieved something and we have pride, and we know that we have the ability to overcome difficult situations. And not forgetting, purpose does drive hope, and hope is a very powerful, significant driver in our lives that helps motivate us. Whatever our purpose is, whether it's to create a better workplace, a better life for yourselves, to be healthier or end suffering, the purpose will lead to hope, and it makes us feel that these goals and dreams are attainable. And ultimately, this will boost our well-being. So Now that we've looked at finding your why and how positive culture can really make us feel so much better, we need to have a look now at what we can do to help cultivate a positive workplace culture. So where do we start? The first thing will be to identify any negative workplace behaviours. Take a step back, have a look at behaviours, patterns, trends that you feel may be impacting you or your teams negatively, and have safe conversations with members of your team. And don't just look at what's negative, look at what is positive, what is working really well for you in the clinic as well. I think when you can open up these conversations and take a step back, then we know where we can intervene and clarify where we need help and where we don't. So then we can create a strategy, and we can have a formal plan and an informal plan. And Leah, I would just like to ask you to elaborate a bit more on the points here under the formal plan for us.
Yeah, so I think, you need a team where everyone knows what the vision is, has the same vision, and feels they can be a part of that vision and bring their own values with it. And I think, that also aligns with recognizing the strengths that each individual has. How can you utilize them? What can they bring to the team? That's going to give them that recognition, and even reward it for themselves internally. There's nothing nicer than when someone says, "You're really good at that. Could you teach me how to do that?" That makes you feel great, and if you can pass that on, it makes you all feel connected as one, working towards the same goal and providing the same thing. On the basis of that, whether you're a small clinic, you're in a corporate, just having that communication so big, knowing that staff, they may not remember the guidelines, they may not remember the policies or what to do in each situation, but if they are up to date, they know where to find it and they deal with it. Fixing it and solving that problem themselves is going to have such a positive impact for them individually and for the team and the clinic. And then I guess lastly, events and team building. Like I said before, it's not easy right now, so we need to get creative, and we've done things like online bake-offs for our meetings and pumpkin carving, and I think one of the guys wants to do a Christmas wreath decorating competition, all online, but
you would want to do an ABBA tribute evening, right? If I remember rightly,
Mama
when an
Mia.
ABBA tune comes on, that's Leah would be up there in the platforms, I can assure you. So maybe that's the way forward.
Not that
Leah.
old, by the way.
Pardon?
I'm not that old.
No, I love Elvis. I'm not that old, but an ABBA tribute evening, I think would go down well.
Karaoke evening online.
Yes, and as a manager, some of the sort of formal processes, and we can see here rewards and acknowledgements. I think you've mentioned before to me how you do reward people for how well they've done and your values in the company, and it may be employee of the month and recognizing them formally, and the whole industry knows about them, and I think that's actually really a lovely idea.
Yeah, it goes for us particularly, those nominations, those values, they're read out, and you may not know that name, but you might, you do afterwards because they've been recognised, even for something so small. And I had it today, just one of my nurses, she phoned me up, she was so excited because she got recognised for one of our values within the company. And it's an email.
Yes, but she loved it.
But she loved it. She was so happy. And it's something that takes how many minutes?
Yes.
But makes her feel wonderful.
Yes, and I worked for a hospital where we had debriefs every day, and it was part of their process that we would come together at the end of the day collectively, and we would say what went right, what went wrong, let's talk about how we feel. And I absolutely loved those little debriefs. It may have been 10 minutes and we all went round in a circle, but for me, that policy, if you want to call it a policy, that process we had meant so much to me in particular. And we've touched on a few of the formal things you can do in the workplace, but there is a lot more. And I encourage the listeners as well to get in touch with us if they want some more information on those. And then, Kate, we have informal ways that we can boost, positive workplace culture. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think one thing that I used to try and keep in my mind is the fact that the people that we work with, essentially we're in a relationship with, as odd as that may sound. And like, what's the one thing that everyone says is the biggest key in a healthy relationship is communication. And we really have to make sure that even in times where we're stressed, we're shorthanded, we're bogged down, we've got 17 million things to do and 5 minutes to do it in, we really try and maintain focus on keeping open those lines of communication, and that we include every member of the team. It doesn't just have to be leadership communication, but it should be every person that works, in your clinic or in your practice, or and making meaningful connections. Maybe as a leader, even though you've got 17 things to do, but you can see that someone may be struggling at the moment. Take 2 minutes aside and pull that person aside and say, how can I help you? What do you need? And even if it's just an ear to listen to, or they just need to get something off their chest, sometimes that can make them feel better. It doesn't always necessarily have to, mean some policy change. Sometimes it's just as easy as, let's have a quick get together. Let's get this out. Let's talk about it. And then from there, we can move forward. And that way everyone feels heard. And it doesn't even need to be, always have to be leaders that are doing this too. I mean, I always encouraged everyone, like, no matter who it was, if you're a kennel assistant, if you're a receptionist, if you're a doctor, if you're a nurse technician, and you see someone that might need a shoulder or an ear or a pat on the back for just a moment, do it. It doesn't always have to come from the top. It feels good when it comes from the top, of course, but it feels, I think, just as good sometimes when it comes from the person that you're sitting next to every day. So
I agree. And I think that's such an important point, actually, that everyone is responsible for a positive workplace culture. We all can contribute. We can all share ideas on how to achieve this. And I know that I wouldn't have got through a 15-hour night shift if it wasn't for my peers, my friendships that I had in the workplace, and our dark humor that I think every veterinary professional may possess. I wouldn't have got through it. And so meaningful connections, as we can see here, is so important in our interactions with our fellow peers. And communities of interest, of course, I'm part of, I think, 20 Facebook groups, and we all lean on each other. We share ideas, we rant at times, and it has a sense of community. And actually it is positive because we are all talking. We are all talking and we are all engaging and we're helping each other. And as you mentioned, some tasks could be very small and not take any time at all. And then, of course, it could maybe lead into bigger things like career development and performance reviews. And I think if there's a collective and collaborative effort, any clinic can achieve this. So following on from this conversation here, we then have the benefits of a positive workplace culture. So following on from what you've said, Kate and Leah, we can see this list here. Having a positive workplace culture will boost meaning, will boost morale in the workplace, boost our performance and productivity. We'll have a sense of job satisfaction, improve communication and relationships. Diversity, of course, and inclusion is so important, more important than ever before. Enhances staff retention. And we've got a sense of safety and security as well, and a supportive environment. And it will inspire creativity and innovation as well. And the last point there, happiness is contagious. I don't care who you are. If there is a team that is laughing and having a good time, you'll want to join in, and you'll just bounce off each other. And those other days are absolutely wonderful and a blessing in our industry. So we now have a Q&A session, I believe. So I'm just going to see here if we've got any questions that have popped up during our discussion. Okay, let's have a look here. So I have a question for you, Leah. Angela has asked, my team doesn't communicate well. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, I think you need to find out why. Why are they not communicating well is kind of the first point.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone communicates differently. Some people respond better to emails, to phone calls, to face. So I think, that's the first point. It depends very much on what are you trying to communicate as well.
Yep.
Going back
I
to
think
the,
that's
what I do
important
wanna,
sometimes too.
yeah,
having different forms of communication, because there's some people who want to say something but they don't feel comfortable coming up to a manager or leader and saying it face to face, but being open to telling people, hey, shoot me an email if you like that, text me, leave a note on my desk, something like that. I think is important too, because they may not say it otheridse.
Yeah, we've got so many methods nowadays to use. Unlike when I first started in practice, what did we didn't even have a computer system. PMS, paper and paper records. So,
and fax, right? Didn't we have fax?
Fax was very popular,
Still using fax.
Gosh, we're showing our age a little bit now, aren't we? But there we are. Communication is, as you mentioned, I think, Kate, earlier on, it's absolutely fundamental in any area of our lives. And maybe addressing the methods, the way we're communicating, why communicating isn't maybe being optimal within the workplace. And I think if you're comfortable having a transparent conversation, right, and trying to find ways that it can be improved, because it may be different for one person to the next. So they're difficult. We also have a question from Charlotte. So she asks, why do you think the veterinary industry is overlooked as caregivers and not given the same recognition as other care industries? How can we build awareness so that emotional and positive workplace culture can also thrive on this? Oh, good question. Kate, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I think that is a great question. That, like I said, that's something that we felt, especially during COVID as an industry, or something at least at my clinic that we felt. I had a lot of team members saying, like, they see all the, thank you to our essential workers, and veterinary professionals no one ever said anything about us. I don't know if it's maybe just the mentality that we've had for so long, that vets are, just kind of like your barn doctor that's, kind of helping the cows, and you only take your cat to the vet when it needs a rabies vaccine. And, obviously we know the industry is changing to include much more preventative care, better diagnostics. We've got dogs going through chemotherapy and radiation, whereas, 10, 15 years ago, that might not have really even been a thing.
Yeah.
And I think maybe, educating the public, or finding avenues to educate the public, whether it's, doing a little, weekly radio broadcast or TV spot. We've got some local veterinarians in the Austin area that'll do like a Thursday morning TV spot, pet of the week kind of thing. But then that also maybe gives you an avenue to just kind of maybe do, highlight a case study or something like that, to really show that there's so much more as an industry that we do besides just give vaccines or just kennel.
Yes, it is about, I think, isn't it, educating the public as well. And because I don't think they always do understand the lengths and depths we go to, and what we're capable of. And I for one, absolutely love motivational speakers. And I know there's Walter Brown in America, and we have Lou, the vet nurse, here in the UK. And there's multiple wonderful, influential people that are really trying to educate not only us within the industry, but further afield, and get out there what we do, because we're fantastic, basically. There's no other way of putting it. But so a final question for Leah. So this is from somebody that wants to remain anonymous. So how do you deal with the backlash of no good deal goes unpunished? We are a 24/7 practice, and whenever we try to do something fun, we unfortunately leave people out and feelings get hurt. This is especially concerning with everyone dealing with such burnout. I think we could relate to this because of our night shifts, actually, couldn't we?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, I think it's a lot easier now with Zoom, online things to do. It's not ideal. It's not, we'd rather be together in a room. Of course we would.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, we would try and find cover. it's not always possible. We would perhaps do a couple of events
Mm-hmm.
and split it in two, so everyone can join. There's
Yeah.
always going to be some people, but I think the biggest thing is that I think we experienced, Vicky, when we were working nights, is that some people wouldn't even be invited.
Yes. It was
And that was the saddest thing, because they would assume that they're working. So don't ever assume that they're not going to want to come because they're working.
Or
Invite
sleeping.
everybody.
Yeah, or sleeping.
Yeah. So just
Yeah.
make sure everyone's included, everyone's invited, give them the opportunity to swap a shift. Maybe someone doesn't want to go because Mum and me night isn't their thing, and they can swap with someone else and they can go instead. So
yes. I think it is certainly harder for 24/7 clinics, and finding that balance and having to, if possible, maybe even do 2 events to try and split the teams into 2 and cater for everyone. I think it does probably require more effort and more time to plan and make sure everyone's happy. And I think from experience working out of hours, I think just feeling acknowledged and visible, and even having that invite, even if I did put sleep first, would have been wonderful. I love my sleep, as you know, but it would have been wonderful to feel included. And I think we mentioned earlier, inclusivity is so important, I think, to create a positive culture.
And hopefully get your managers on board with it as well.
Yes, yeah, most definitely.
You can't get your managers on board with it if everyone being off at the same time or finding locum cover.
Yes, yeah, indeed, yeah. So then we do have a slide here for you, just with some useful resources. So the AVMA created this wonderful booklet with 100 healthy tips to support a culture of well-being. It's absolutely fantastic. I encourage you all to have a look at it. It's based on the 8 dimensions of wellness and goes into great detail. We at Vetstoria also have some resources that you can contact us or download. We have a employee happiness survey. So if you want to give your employees these surveys so they can answer anonymously how they are feeling in clinic, in the workplace, so you can bring about change, please feel free to get in contact with us. We also have a great resource here from BVA. They created very recently, actually, I think it was only a couple of months ago, a voluntary code of positive workplace culture. And they really encourage this from you as an individual and looking after your mental and physical health, to the impact on your teams and to your clients as well. The Federation of Veterinarians in Europe, you'll see a link on the screen there. They also recently did a webinar on wellbeing, and I encourage you to look at that as well. And for anyone, of course, that is feeling stressed at the moment, maybe you are struggling mentally, in the UK, of course, we have VetLife that you can contact. And in the USA in particular, there is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline Crisis Team. If you need any phone numbers or other resources regarding mental health support, please get in contact with us, and we're more than happy to help you. So I just want to finish on this final slide here. Wellbeing comes from one place and one place only: a positive culture. I love this quote very, very much. Leah, can I get your final word for today, please?
Yeah, I just hope that people take away from this some tips, some advice, ideas of what they're going to do in practice, and have some hope. I think we're a wonderful profession, wonderful. We may not always be recognised by the public and everyone else, but we are all wonderful. We're all very united, and we can take whatever is thrown at us. Indeed.
And Kate, your final word for today, please.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with Leah. The veterinary industry is very strong, as we know. We're resilient and smart. And if anything, I hope people know that while they may be facing some struggles and some issues, even more so than they ever have before because of COVID, there is always going to be that light at the end of the tunnel. And you may have to take a few different roads possibly to get to that light at the end of the tunnel that you had initially expected, but you can get there. Yep.
Thank you. And I just want to say that we are a really big family in the veterinary community. And I want to thank all the listeners for joining us, because this is an important topic. And I just want to say personally that you all do a fantastic job. And as they say, not all superheroes wear capes. I hope you feel proud of what you achieve every day in clinic and feel valued and know your purpose, of course. I hope this has encouraged you to think of ways that together we can implement the changes needed to achieve a positive workplace culture that will improve our work life for us as individuals, teams, and the business as well. Thank you for listening, everyone, and please get in contact with us. We would love to connect with you. Come to the ABBA tribute evening with Leah, she'll be performing. So please do connect with us. We absolutely love talking and learning from you as well. So thank you, and to UK and Europe, good evening, and to America, good afternoon. I'll speak to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.